I'm going to start by talking about the Saturn and Uranus square. This is pretty much the biggest astrological aspect of 2021, and it's actually in effect through 2023, but we get 3 exact hits of it this year. And I do want to mention, for anybody who is really new to astrology and you hear some astrological lingo like square aspect, and it's just too much, you can let that float over your head. This is a trick I learned from my teacher, Emily Trinkus. She used to give a lot of talks, and she just said, yeah, if you don't understand the lingo, you can tune it out and just listen to the themes, because that's the most important information. And then if you're very interested in the technical piece, a lot of people are, there's some people who are astrologers who are learning astrology also. There'll be a little bit of that there for you too, but I really don't want to leave anyone behind. To me, it's really important that everyone feels that this is speaking to them. So that's my disclaimer about astro technical language. But a square in astrology has to do with a tense angle of 2 planets that are probably, their energies are going to butt heads in some way. And when we think about the planet Saturn and what it's been up to, as I mentioned in the intro, it's spent the past 2.5 years moving through the sign of Capricorn. It's comfortable in Capricorn. Saturn is ruler, modern ruler of Capricorn, but it can get stuck in its ways. It's almost too much of a thing, just like Mars and Aries. It's like, that's a lot of the same kind of energy. We get a bit of a shift because now Saturn has been moved into Aquarius, which is also a sign that it rules traditionally. So that is still going to be extra strong, but it's a different energy. Capricorn is interested in tradition. Aquarius is more interested in inventing something new. So knowing that Saturn represents structures, systems, government, business, that it has now just jumped into a sign that wants to reinvent things, that's kind of exciting. That's a bit breaking out of the box, and it may come from the people who actually set the systems themselves. And Saturn was just conjunct Jupiter last month in December, as I mentioned, and that's starting to dissipate. We're still feeling sort of the outward reverberations of that conjunction. But what happens, Jupiter moves faster from our perspective, which is all of astrology, is people on Earth observing things. So that means Jupiter's going to kind of go do its own thing in Aquarius this year. It's not really relating with Saturn anymore. And Saturn's new planet to relate with this year is going to be the planet Uranus, which happens to be in the sign of Taurus. We've been feeling Uranus and Taurus these past couple years. This is with us for a while. Uranus stays in a sign for about 7.5 years. We're just kind of in the first part of that. And Saturn and Uranus will be squaring each other. Now, Uranus is very revolutionary. It's the planet that rules Aquarius. So you're thinking, wait a minute, Saturn's in Aquarius, but then the Aquarian planet Uranus is squaring it. To me, this is a stirring stick. It's trying to bring out that revolution side, even though it's in, right now, Aquarius is being expressed through Saturn, which kind of wants to dig in its heels. So there's a lot of tension. Uranus and Taurus is kind of tense too, because I would say Uranus would probably rather be expressing in Aquarius, but it is stuck in Taurus, which tends to be stubborn as well. Taurus is an earth sign. Taurus likes to move slowly. Uranus likes to move quickly. Taurus rules money and our values. And a lot of astrologers saw Uranus moving into Taurus as kind of something to watch as far as instability in our economy, because Uranus represents sudden change, surprises. People get a little nervous about Uranus. I tend to like it because it can accelerate things that could take a really long time to happen. But that doesn't mean it's comfortable, but it certainly can speed up things. So I'm seeing things moving kind of quickly. And I think with Saturn now in Aquarius, it's shifting the value from putting our energy towards material gain to more of an interest in the collective good. And I think it's safe to say freedom is more of importance, perhaps coming into the forefront over security, where Saturn and Capricorn want to just, let's just try to keep everything the same because it's pretty okay. And if we change it, it could be disastrous. You know, I actually got some comments and emails on YouTube this year when I was saying, get ready, things are probably going to change. And people are like, no, we don't want that. And I thought, well, actually, there's just as much of a risk in not changing. It's kind of trying to direct the inevitable. And so I think Uranus will come in and kind of help to speed that up for us. When I was writing about this, I put this square like an awkward teenager. It's sort of like we're in this in-between phase between the past and the future and figuring out how we want to do this. And this square is going to be exact 3 times this year. I've marked it in a timeline. It's coming right up. We have our first exact square of this in February. And then it will happen again in June and again in December. So just knowing that, it's good to keep that in mind. Things may start to feel more tense, and you're probably thinking, more tense than this month? I was thinking that, you know, possibly. It kind of depends how people handle it. The astrology can say one thing, but I'm not really a predictive astrology because I can't predict how individual people are going to behave. I can just kind of talk about the energies that are in the air, and some people may react by doing something crazy. Some people may react by doing nothing. And but it does say some things, you know, are really ready for drastic change. And we've got this cycle that started with Saturn and Uranus back in 1988. So what happens is planets come together. It's called a conjunction. In 1988, Saturn and Uranus were together in Sagittarius. And then they ended up squaring each other, opposing, squaring. So we are actually in the final square of this cycle. And then they're going to come back together again in 2032. So in astrology, we call that a closing square. I thought that was kind of important. It seems like there's already been a lot of work done in this cycle. This is the big last push before something newer. And so I think anyone who maybe was born around 1988 might really be feeling this because maybe they were brought here during that conjunction to participate in this whole cycle. So I thought of those people. Another thing I noted about this square is that we had a Saturn-Uranus square during the Civil War. And I just get nervous even stating that in my last video for February overview. I wanted to be super clear. I am not predicting Civil War. I'm not a predictive astrologer. But I think it's important to note the themes. And then the news broke this week and I thought, uh-oh, I hope that isn't literal. I don't think it is, but it certainly was demonstrating a group of rioters storming the Capitol, and this Saturn Uranus square has to do with needing to change systems and structures and it being unpredictable and volatile. It kind of rang to me not just the end of that Mars retrograde, but a bit of this Saturn and Uranus square. So it's changed kind of from the inside out. You can see now, even in the US government, people are completely taking sides and at odds and arguing within themselves. It's bringing it to the attention. Okay, this is hitting home. We got to figure this out. Now, another interesting thing that I learned when I was researching this square was from an astrologer named David Coleman. He's got a really cool blog, and he was able to use his software to find out, okay, there's the Saturn Uranus square. That's one thing. You might see that anywhere from 15 to 35 years cycles. But when was the last time Saturn in Aquarius squared Uranus and Taurus? And I was actually kind of surprised to find out how long ago that was. It was in 1432. 1432, and then it happened again in 1522 to 23. And I thought, wow, that seems significant. And he described some of the stuff going on. One of the things in 1432, that was the year Joan of Arc went to trial. I thought about, people feeling so strongly about their beliefs that they're willing to die for them or to go through trial, that they're not going to back down. Very strong spiritual beliefs, other types of beliefs. And then the one that really kind of got me was the printing press. Gutenberg made his movable type printing press in 1432. And that kind of opened the door to this whole age of enlightenment. People having information that they couldn't before because the church, for example, wanted to control what people saw, or the kings and queens, so that, they could control them. And so this printing press liberated people. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Information liberation. And it opened the door for the Renaissance. And there's so much more in this year's astrology that plays to information Renaissance, as well as artistic, creative, when we get into these other sections. So I thought that was pretty interesting. 1522 was that other Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus and Taurus. And that's when Martin Luther challenged the Catholic Church. So again, somebody saying, hey, wait a minute. We're going to give people, he translated the Bible into German. We're going to let people decide for themselves, not you just interpreting what you're saying this says, but nobody can read it. So this to me was some fascinating research, and my specialty is mostly in one-on-one astrology, human interactions, how we can make it and changes in our own lives. But I like to refer to other astrologers who specialize in these historical cycles, because you can learn a lot from what was going on in the past. So I think on a personal level, this is really going to help us take more responsibility for our choices. And I do think the environment is huge in this, because Uranus is in Taurus, the earth sign, the sign of Mother Earth. And when you think of Taurus, you can think of Earth, Earth Mama energy. And here comes Saturn in Aquarius wanting to revolutionize things. And I think that people have to step up and think, I can't say this isn't my problem anymore. When there are forests burning, when the climate is doing all these crazy things. And so I think that is going to help people align where they're going to spend their energy this year. And anyone who is an Aquarius or who is a Taurus, or really the other two fixed signs, which are Leo and Scorpio, may especially feel personally involved Maybe they're going to be more the front activist in this. This coming up exact square is at 7 degrees of Aquarius and Taurus. And so people born on or around January 27th or April 28th, as well as Leos who might have been July 30th, or Scorpios or Halloween babies around Halloween. Just notice how you might feel around this exact square. The exact square is coming up, like I said, in February, and it's right around the time Uranus will finish up being retrograde. So like I say, it seems really strange to think things are going to get more powerful feeling in this square than they were this month. But part of me thinks maybe because Uranus is retrograde, which is kind of that inward energy. It's a frustrated energy and it wants to come out. When it's moving direct, perhaps it might be more productive, because I wouldn't say what happened on Wednesday was at all productive. So yeah, I think, I'm seeing some people whose birthday, Amanda, January 26th. Yep. And Elizabeth has a natal Saturn, 7 or 8 degrees Taurus. Yeah, this is something to consider. How do you want to show up for this square? What can you take responsibility for? What can you do to make it less tense, even though there's things that are unexpected? How can you open your mind to new ideas and not dig in your heels? And maybe Elizabeth's going to do kind of a prompt of that nature. So yeah, someone's asking about when the third square, and I just want to clarify, it's the same square this year, but the third exact hit of the square is December. Yeah, it's still all the square this year. So that was a good clarification. And yeah, I think those are the big things. I mean, there's so much more you could probably say about it, but this is the biggest year of it. It only is exact once in 2022. And even though it's kind of in effect a bit in 2023, it's really starting to dissipate. So I see what happens with it this year as kind of determining the course of how it's going to play out in the other 2 years. Yeah, I think, let's see if there's any other things to mention. I think that was basically it. So I hope that can be inspiring and just something to really be aware of. I definitely don't want people to feel anxious about the astrology, because just because there's something that's a challenging angle, it could go different ways. And like I said, it could speed up something that's needed to happen, and it would have taken a lot longer to change without the square.